Hey there, history buffs and lovers of the strange and unusual. Join me as I dive into the craziest historical moments that are so wild you won't believe they actually happened. We're talking about events so bizarre, so outlandish that they make you question everything you thought you knew about the past. History is full of amazing stories, but some of the most fascinating ones often fly under the radar. These are the tales that don't make it into your average textbook. The stories of eccentric characters, unbelievable events, and just plain weird happenings that make you wonder, did that really happen? So buckle up, because we're about to embark on a wild ride through the annals of history, exploring the moments that will make you laugh, scratch your head, and maybe even question the very fabric of reality. Let's go. Okay, let's start with a story that sounds like it's straight out of a Jules Verne novel, but I swear this actually happened. In the 19th century, France decided it wanted a secret weapon against its old nemesis, England. What was this secret weapon, you ask? Well, it wasn't some fancy new cannon or a fleet of invisible warships. No, it was a tunnel under the English Channel. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that's ambitious, but not exactly crazy. And you'd be right, except for one small detail. These guys didn't have giant tunnel-boring machines or even dynamite. They were armed with nothing but pickaxes, shovels, and good old-fashioned elbow grease. Can you imagine the audacity? The sheer willpower it would take to look at the English Channel, this massive body of water separating two countries, and say, yep, we're going to dig under that. These weren't just a few guys messing around in their backyard. This was a full-blown military operation, sanctioned by the French government. They had engineers, labourers, and even a dedicated team of horses to haul away the excavated dirt. And how long did this monumental undertaking take, you ask? A year? 5 years? Nope, try 2 decades. That's right, these guys spent over 20 years of their lives digging a tunnel under the sea, all in the name of national security. Talk about dedication. I mean, can you imagine spending 2 decades of your life on a single project, especially one as backbreaking as digging a tunnel by hand? These guys were basically the human embodiment of the never-give-up spirit. Unfortunately for them, and perhaps fortunately for the structural integrity of the English Channel, the project was eventually abandoned before it was completed. But hey, at least they tried, right? All right, let's shift gears now and travel back in time to ancient Greece, where we meet a philosopher who took the phrase marching to the beat of your own drum to a whole new level. His name was Diogenes of Sinope, but most people just called him Diogenes, probably because of Sinope was a bit of a mouthful. Now, Diogenes was a cynic philosopher, and I don't mean cynical in the modern sense, like, ugh, another iPhone, how predictable. No, the cynics were a whole school of thought. And they believed that the key to happiness was rejecting all worldly possessions and social conventions. Basically, they were the original minimalists, except they took it to the extreme. And Diogenes? He was like the poster child for cynicism. This guy lived in a clay pot, for crying out loud. Not a house, not a tent, a pot, like the kind you'd plant flowers in. He ate whatever he could scavenge, wore the same clothes every day, and generally made it his mission to challenge every societal norm he could find. But the thing Diogenes is most famous for is his lantern. You see, Diogenes would walk around in broad daylight holding a lit lantern. And when people asked him what he was doing, he'd reply, "I'm looking for an honest man." I told you this guy was committed to the bit. Imagine being so disillusioned with society that you wander around with a lantern in the middle of the day, claiming to search for something as rare as an honest person. It's both hilarious and kind of tragic at the same time. But that was Diogenes for you. Always challenging people, making them question their values, and proving that you don't need a lot of material possessions to make a statement. He was the ultimate philosophical troll, and his legacy continues to inspire and bemuse us to this day. Chapter 3. The Cross-Dressing King. Okay, get ready for this one because it involves espionage, cross-dressing, and a king who really liked cannons. I'm talking about Charles XII of Sweden, a 17th century monarch who was as fearless on the battlefield as he was in the dressing room. Now, Charles XII became king at the tender age of 15, which is already a pretty wild start to a life story. But Charles wasn't content with just sitting around in a fancy palace, signing decrees and attending banquets. He wanted action, he wanted glory, he wanted to blow stuff up. and blow stuff up, he did. Charles XII was a military genius, leading his Swedish armies to victory in numerous battles against larger, more established forces. He was known for his aggressive tactics, his unwavering courage, and his, shall we say, unconventional methods. One of those unconventional methods involved donning a dress. You see, Charles wasn't just a brilliant military commander, he was also a master of disguise. He loved to sneak behind enemy lines disguised as a common soldier or even a peasant, to gather intelligence and sow chaos. But his most daring disguise was undoubtedly his female persona. Charles would dress up as a woman, complete with a wig, makeup and a flowing gown, and waltz right into enemy camps. Can you imagine the scene? There's Charles, this fearsome warrior king, strolling through the enemy camp, sipping tea and gossiping with the guards, all the while gathering vital information about troop movements and battle plans. It sounds like something out of a spy movie, but it's absolutely true. Charles's cross-dressing escapades were legendary, and they allowed him to outmaneuver his enemies time and time again. Chapter 4, The Rabbit Lady. All right, folks, it's time for the grand finale. The story so bizarre, so mind-bogglingly strange, that it's been the subject of debate and speculation for centuries. Fasten your seatbelts because we're diving headfirst into the curious case of Mary Toft, the woman who gave birth to rabbits. You heard me right, rabbits. Now, before you dismiss this as some outlandish fable, let me assure you that this actually happened, or at least people in 18th century England were absolutely convinced it happened. The year was 1726, and Mary Toft, a young woman from Surrey, England, became the talk of the town and eventually the entire country when she claimed to have given birth to, wait for it, a litter of rabbits. I know, it sounds insane, but people were losing their minds over this. Doctors came from all over to examine Mary, and even King George I himself sent his personal physician to investigate this medical marvel. Mary's story was that she had been working in a field when she was startled by a rabbit. She became obsessed with rabbits, and lo and behold, a few months later, she went into labor and delivered a bunch of bunnies. Over the next few weeks, Mary claimed to have given birth to numerous other rabbits, some dead, some alive. The public was both horrified and fascinated, and Mary became an overnight sensation. But as with all good cons, the truth eventually came out. Turns out, Mary had been, shall we say, assisting in the rabbit deliveries. She had been inserting dead rabbits into her body and then giving birth to them in front of witnesses. It was a wild, elaborate hoax, and once it was exposed, Mary became the target of ridicule and scorn. She was eventually forced to confess and spent some time in prison for her deception. But the story of Mary Toft, the rabbit woman, lived on, a cautionary tale about the dangers of blind faith, the allure of the bizarre, and the lengths some people will go to for their 15 minutes of fame. Outro. Until next time, history buffs, thanks for joining me on this journey into the weird and wonderful world of history. We've covered some truly wacky ground today, from clandestine tunnel digging to philosophical lantern-wielding, cross-dressing kings and rabbit-birthing hoaxes. It just goes to show that history is anything but boring. Behind the dates and battles, there's a whole world of strange and fascinating stories just waiting to be unearthed. What's your favorite wacky historical moment? Let me know in the comments below. And if you liked this video, be sure to check out my other content for more intriguing stories and unusual insights into the human experience. Until next time, stay curious.